I was ready to skip over and we were going to go early. So as you know, we've made a lot of information available about the 2024 elections to all of our members. You can find that at iinc.com/2024elections. Those include videos featuring the candidates running for insurance commissioner. At Expo this year, we'll have the chance to hear directly from each of the candidates. Today, we have State Senator Natasha Marcus from Charlotte. She is the Democratic candidate, and she is joining us to speak to all of our attendees. Tomorrow, you'll hear from current Insurance Commissioner Mike Causey, the Republican candidate. Each will tell IINC members about their background and experience and a little bit about their vision for the office and what their priorities will be if elected. So please join me in welcoming Senator Marcus.
I made it. Hey, everybody. Wow, those lights are bright. You can't see a single face from up here, can you? I'm just going to assume you're all rapt and just so interested in what I have to say and smiling. Thank you all for letting me address you. I'm Natasha Marcus, and we're going to try to use some of these slides and see if this works. They told me to point it that way. Okay. I first wanted just to acknowledge that as I run for insurance commissioner, I see all of you independent agents as a partner in my goal. I think we have the shared goal, which is to foster a vibrant marketplace of insurance options so that your customers and my voters and constituents have options when they need insurance. And it's important to have more competition in the market and information so that customers can compare when they're shopping. So you are a key resource, as you know, and I know, to consumers here in North Carolina, and I see us as partners in this work. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about me. I'm one of 2 candidates for Commissioner of Insurance this year. It's a statewide office. I have served a state-level government position in the North Carolina Senate now for 3 terms. So that's 6 years. I'm currently in my 6th year in the North Carolina Senate. I represent a district that is in Mecklenburg County. I actually live not in Charlotte, but in Davidson. Any Wildcats in the room? Davidson College? Man, I can't see. I'm going to assume there's at least one. And I've served on several committees. The one that is probably most relevant for today is the Commerce and Insurance Committee. I'll talk a little bit about some of the bills that we have debated and voted on in there that relate to this job. I've been a community leader. I'm a former litigation attorney. I used to practice with the Brooks Pierce Law Firm in Greensboro after getting my law degree at Duke, and I am the proud mom of 2 adult daughters, one of whom is married to a naval officer right now, so we always think of Parker and wish him well. These are 2 of the most important bills for, I think, for this group to know about that went through the Senate Insurance Committee this year, both of which I voted no on, and I'll tell you why. So House Bill 488 you may have heard about because it delayed updates to our state's building codes, which I think is irresponsible and a mistake. We are operating on building codes that haven't been updated since the 1990s here in North Carolina. We're getting way behind compared to where other states are. So brand new buildings in North Carolina are being built on these outdated standards. So they're not energy efficient, they're not resistant to the ever-strengthening storms that we are seeing as a reality of the changes to our climate. And we have already now heard from FEMA that we will no longer be eligible for reimbursement money in some cases because our building codes are so out of date. So I voted no on this bill. I'm very frustrated to tell you it passed over my no vote and the no votes of several others. And then more recently, I voted no on Senate Bill 166, which similarly blocked energy efficiency initiatives and removed architects and fire safety experts from the North Carolina Building Code Council, and lessened backflow protections, which are important for clean water. So those are some of the things that I've been doing in the Senate. Let's move on to my vision for the office I now seek, which again is a statewide office, one of the 10 Council of State positions, with, of course, direct relationship to the work that all of you do. And this is my mission. I just wanted to set it out clearly, highlighting some of this. I think it's important to note it is an elected position. North Carolina is one of only 11 states in the nation that give the voters an opportunity to decide who will be their advocate when it comes to matters related to insurance. And of course, you all know that we share the need to have affordable, reliable insurance. And I think it's important for consumers that the Commissioner of Insurance be transparent and accountable in the work that she does. So just few quick issues. I've only been given 15 minutes to talk to you. There's so much to say, but I want to highlight some of these. So I think it's really important that we bring back public hearings and transparency in the process of rate setting in North Carolina. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, you may know this, you're more educated on this than the typical voter who does not work in this industry. But let me just make clear. So on one side, we have the insurance companies, and they are represented collectively by the Rate Bureau. That's how North Carolina sets it up. That's not a governmental group. That's an independent group created by statute, but an independent group. And they are tasked with their goal, which is to make maximum profits for insurance companies. That's what they're supposed to do. And they are entitled under law to earn a reasonable profit. We want them to, right? Because if they don't earn a reasonable profit, they won't do business in North Carolina. We can't force them to offer policies here. We want them to. And so that law allows that. And we have to encourage them to continue to write policies in North Carolina and to compete against each other to bring the best prices for your customers and my constituents. And they, in the past, have been expected to provide evidence to justify what their new rate might be. When they come and request a rate increase to the commissioner, there's supposed to be some evidence that justifies that. So on the other side, we've got the insurers and the Rate Bureau on one side, and on the other side, we have one person who's elected to represent the best interest of the consumers. And that's the Commissioner of Insurance. It's not a commission. It's not a group of people like on the Public Utilities Commission you may be familiar with. It is a single person, the Commissioner of Insurance. And that person's job is lots of parts of the job: regulate the insurance market, make sure there aren't going to be fly-by-night groups that are collecting premiums and then leaving the state and leaving people with no coverage. But I think one of the probably the most important part of the job is to make sure that rates are fair and that they're not going up even 1 penny more than is justified by the evidence. And in order to do that, the North Carolina law empowers the Commissioner of Insurance to hold public rate hearings when there is a rate request. That again requires insurance companies to come before the commissioner, present evidence under oath subject to cross-examination to justify a rate hike. So that's the setup, and here's the problem. This is my opponent, Mike Causey. He's been the Commissioner of Insurance for 8 years. He has had 16 rate hike approvals during the time that he has served. That's an unprecedented number and way more than his predecessor. These are just some of the examples. 3 homeowners rate hikes, his predecessor only allowed 1, etc. And even worse, there hasn't been a single public hearing. He skipped them all. He sets them, he says he's going to hold them, but then he cancels them. And instead of providing the public and all of you and your consumers, your customers with evidence to justify a rate hike on homeowners, for example, he just meets privately with them. And he comes out of those meetings with a new rate. And he says, okay, well, rates are going up again. But trust me, I made you a good deal. I negotiated them down. Of course, they always ask for the moon, right? They ask for some crazy high number. And so the number that the Commissioner of Insurance agrees on is always lower than the moon. But there's no public hearing and no transparency about it. And I think that's really a problem when we see how fast rate hikes in North Carolina on homeowners insurance specifically have outpaced inflation since 2017 when he took over this role. So it's not just inflation, it's much faster than the rate of inflation. There's something else going on. And this is a map that refers to a website we have that you can go to, your customers can go to look to see how fast homeowners insurance rates have gone up in their county specifically, and how much faster that is than the rate of inflation. You can also see an issue I want to talk about a little later about how many policies in their county are subject to a consent to rate notice paying higher than the maximum even. And it talks about the impending rate request that is, as you may know, 42.6% statewide average increase that they are requesting. And this is all important to note, the backdrop here, that insurance companies have been pulling in record profits in North Carolina. So you may hear them say, oh, it's really hard to insure homes, and they've pulled out of states like Florida. You've probably heard about that, right? But in North Carolina, they are making record profits. How do we know this? New York Times, relying on data from AM Best, did a long series of reports about profits on homeowners insurance specifically across different states. And it showed that in North Carolina, the homeowners insurance policies and companies offering them have made profits in 9 out of the last 10 years. The only year they didn't, there on the graph you'll see, is the one where 3 major storms hit all at once. But in North Carolina, those bar graphs show big profits for homeowners insurance, specifically in North Carolina. Other states, I picked out just one. I think there's 18 states where they're losing money lately. Iowa, an interior state, not a coastal state, not where you would expect, they're losing money in Iowa. But they're making up for it by overcharging North Carolina homeowners. And that's exactly what the North Carolina Commissioner of Insurance is supposed to protect us from. So that's why we need better transparency. We need to see the data. We need to have public hearings before rates keep going up and up and up on North Carolinians. Issue number 2 that I want to talk about, this group knows more than a typical group that I talk to about what consent to rate even is. But as I travel the state, I can assure you that maybe 1 in 100 people have ever even heard of it and don't know that there is a notice in their policy about how if they pay their premium, they are paying more than the maximum rate is set by North Carolina. Consent to rate in North Carolina is huge as compared to other states where it is, one report that looked into this, where its usage is almost nil, is the quote. In North Carolina, it has ballooned. And consent to rate is something that my opponent enabled and embraced, saying it gave freedoms to the insurance companies. I think that's a loss of focus on what the job is. It's not about enabling insurance companies to maximize their profits. It's supposed to be, again, looking out for consumers and transparency. And most consumers do not notice that consent to rate notification somewhere hidden in their bill that says if you pay this policy today, you're paying more than the maximum. As you probably know, they can charge, insurance companies under the law now can charge up to 250% of the maximum rate on homeowners and auto insurance just by putting this notice in. Most people think, oh, my rates went up. I don't know why, but I guess I have to pay it. What I tell them when I inform voters about this is check your bill and see, because about half of policies have it now. And your best bet is to find an independent agent who can find you a new policy, a company that will only charge you the max, not 250% of the max. So again, I see you as partners in this work to get better coverage, more affordable policies for North Carolinians. And I'm making this data available as well because I believe in transparency. This is what the National Association of Insurance Companies, Commissioners, found when they looked into consent to rate usage. Oh, here's the quote. So it's gone up dramatically in North Carolina, while other states it is virtually nil. And that it is not well understood by consumers, and that it deserves some attention of policymakers and some analysis. So in response to that call as a state senator, I filed Senate Bill 882, And that is a bill basically that would allow us to study how often it's used, who is getting hit with a consent to rate, how many people are actually paying a higher rate, and why that's important. This bill didn't go anywhere. I'm going to move on quickly because I'm running out of time. Issue number 3 is the climate crunch. I think it's important that we acknowledge it is real. The climate is changing. Storms are happening more frequently, and they're larger storms. You understand how directly this is related to insurance. I think it is the time when consumers really feel the impacts of climate change the most, when they see their insurance bill. More parts of North Carolina are subject to flooding and will be in the future. This is just a little bit of analysis about how many properties are subject to flooding in North Carolina. I have a plan to address it. We need to be more resilient and ready. I stood on the roof of a fortified roof. I stood on the roof of a home that had a fortified roof installed just last weekend down at the coast, so that I understand and can talk to more people about the need for that. There's many other things we can do. I talked about updating building codes. That is basic and a no-brainer. We should be doing it. And the last issue is how important it is that we have sensible leadership focused on consumers leading the Department of Insurance, which again is supposed to be there for the people of North Carolina. One way in which I think the current commissioner has not done that is moving the regional offices that are there to serve the public from places that had high volume to much more remote locations in rural areas, making it much harder for more people to get to. These are just 3 examples. Here's some of the things I stand for. I hope that you will consider this important race and think about electing someone who's going to be there with focus on consumers. I'm not taking any campaign contributions from insurance company PACs or top executives at insurance companies, because I think that creates a conflict of interest. I want to work for the people of North Carolina and not have any entanglements with the insurance company when we negotiate new rates. We need fair rates. I want to restore accountability and transparency so people understand what they're getting. I want to reestablish the agents' advisory councils that existed under the previous Commissioner of Insurance so that I can have two-way dialogue with agents like you who talk to consumers every day and know what is needed. This is the last slide. Just some information about where to find more information. You can scan that QR code. My website is just my name, natashamarcus.com. There's so much more information there. I welcome your questions. My email and phone number are on the website. This is one of many times I've talked with your group, and I hope to continue that dialogue and know so that you can know more about me and I can learn from you. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm Natasha Marcus.
Today we have current Insurance Commissioner Mike Causey. He is a Republican candidate for the Commissioner of Insurance. He's going to tell each of you about his background experience, a little bit about what he's accomplished as Insurance Commissioner and what his vision for the office will be once he is reelected. So please join me in welcoming North Carolina Insurance Commissioner Mike Causey to the stage. Hey, good to see you again. Hadn't been long, has it?
Yeah, thank you, Albie, and thank you, Joe Stewart. I tell you, y'all are lucky to have somebody as entertaining as Joe Stewart. We were outside beside the balloons, and somebody wanted a picture. Joe Stewart was on one side, and I was on the other, balloons in the middle. Joe Stewart said 3 things full of hot air. But it is an honor for me to serve as your insurance commissioner and to be back with you. I just got back in late last night from Brunswick County and Oak Island, Southport, looking at the damage, and it was pretty sad to see some of those homes that one lady had a new home. She'd only been in it 8 months and had about a foot of water all across that ruined everything. I was in another home that had almost 4 feet of water throughout the house and just ruined everything in the house. And most of those folks did not have flood insurance, and you all know how much we've been talking about flood insurance over the past, well, really since Hurricane Florence. When Hurricane Florence hit in September of 2018, there was 23 southeastern counties underwater. We went to every one of those counties, and thanks to the Big I and their grant that allowed us to get this command center as a motorhome, but we call it our Mobile Command Center Consumer Assistance vehicle. We set up insurance camps with all the major insurance companies and helping consumers. And I went to every one of those counties, and what we learned after Florence, there were 88,000 people, according to the claim, that's just what we know about through the Joint Underwriters Association, that lost their homes, everything in it, and they had no insurance because they didn't have flood insurance. So we started working to set up these flood classes that most of you all have participated in to give insurance agents, realtors, engineers, architects, surveyors, continuing education credits. And since we started doing that, we now have 25% more homeowners with flood insurance than we had back in 2019, but that's still just scratching the surface, because the majority of folks do not have flood insurance. So thank you for what you do in educating your policyholders. You all know what we do. We have some of our folks at the Department of Insurance here today. We have regional directors, agent services, consumer folks. So if you all have a problem with insurance, go see one of the folks with the Department of Insurance or give me a call. But we help people every day. If they've got a dispute with an insurance company on getting a claim paid, we help seniors with Medicare issues with our Seniors Health Insurance Information Program. We regulate bail bondsmen, collection agencies. I'm not going to go down the list, but those of you that hadn't been to the website, ncdoi.gov, that's more than you want to know. But as much as people complain about the rising cost of insurance and high cost, we are one of the best states in the country as far as having a healthy, stable insurance market. And it's been that way for a long time, and we have folks that say, well, why don't we change our system? If you don't like the system, the only group that can change it is the General Assembly, because they created the Rate Bureau back in 1977. But for those of you that read Best Review, they had a nice article in the September 2024 Best Review, and it really said a lot about North Carolina. And this was the headline, is regarding the dwelling insurance filing that was settled. And the headline says, North Carolina dwelling proposal approved at a fraction of the State Rate Bureau's request. And then the subheadline says, the North Carolina Department of Insurance approved an increase for dwellings statewide that was a lower rate than insurers have seen in other states. And what they did was they put together a chart, and they have the states with the highest increase in dwellings, and those increases range from 36% to 150%. It looked like Penn National from Pennsylvania had the highest increase, but North Carolina was one of the best in the country, and they had the range was 3%, like State Auto and some of those others, and the very highest counties in some of our coastal counties, the highest was 18%. So that says a lot right there, about North Carolina. On automobile insurance, you can look up Forbes Advisory did a study for 2023 of all 50 states, and they concluded that only 5 states have lower average automobile insurance rates than North Carolina. And of course, you all know our legislature did a study of automobile insurance, and they hired a nice little well-educated professor who's a nice fella, but he just didn't understand insurance. And he picked out of all the states South Carolina to compare us to. And one of the legislators on the other side of the aisle in the hearing says, well, we certainly don't want to be like South Carolina. And it was Representative Dahl, and I said, I agree with Representative Dahl. We don't want to be like South Carolina, because in that study that Forbes did, North Carolina was one of the lowest in the country, half the national average. South Carolina was double North Carolina on the national average. If I don't have a slideshow like you got to see yesterday, but if you want to know about our legislators and how they rank, there is a study that's done by nonpartisan, nonprofit North Carolina Free Enterprise Foundation, otherwise known as NC Free. You just look it up on the website, ncfree.org, and they do legislative business ratings. And this is simply for, well, I'll read exactly what they say. Is pretty clear cut. It says the legislative business ratings are the cornerstone product of North Carolina Free Enterprise Foundation, and these ratings equip business leaders, the media, and the public with a tool to assess whether a lawmaker is generally favorable towards free enterprise or not. These are the folks that support small business or they don't. And all I can tell you, you can look it up, my opponent out of 50 state senators ranked 50 out of 50. So that says a lot about support for business. Joe Stewart said if I didn't mention this, he'd never let me speak again. So this is a fraud. We oversee fraud control. We have a criminal investigations division, and we did last couple of years town halls with law enforcement, with sheriffs, police chiefs all around the state, and they liked it so well they wanted us to open it up to the public. So what all you want me to say about it, Joe? It's in Winston-Salem, right here, Wednesday, September 25th, that's next week, right? At 2 p.m. at the Robert Strickland Building, Silas Creek Parkway, Winston-Salem. So it's a town hall. The public's invited, so anybody local here wants to come to that, I think you'll get a lot out of it. But I just thank you all for what you do. I appreciate your support and your vote. And you know, one thing my opponent does have is a lot of money. So if you hadn't looked at the races and who's running, it's about time to do that. And we have a campaign, not much of a website, but we have a website, and it's called MikeCauseyNC.com. If you'll go to MikeCauseyNC.com, send that out to your friends and family and folks you know in the insurance business, and ask them to volunteer, take some yard signs, and if they only make a $10 or $20 contribution, it'll be appreciated and well used. We're going to do some statewide radio, and that's about it. But thank you so much. If I can help you with anything, let me know. I'll be you up next, I guess. I know there's a clock back there, and it says we're going to tell you when you're out of time, and it's getting close.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate you being with us very much. Thank you. Yes, sir. And safe travels the rest of the day.